Right. There's that is working now. How are we doing, people? So I made a wee video this afternoon, but it took so long with the rendering and stuff through my movie maker and YouTube that I've decided that I'm just going to do a wee live, me and Gav. I'm going to play what I done this afternoon and compare it to what we see coming from, you know, the Globe proponents and whatnot. So I'll wait till Gav arrives here. How are we doing, everybody? Christy Lomas, how you doing? David Thompson, Sandy123, Mr. Cheswick, how you doing? Robert Reeves, John McDermott, how you doing? Just Ask, Beyond Belief, how you doing, mate? David Thompson, Level World, how are we? Plain Truther UK, Alfredo Barragan, Flatman, how you doing? Andrew, Trouble Starter, Probs Gav. Dave Hinkle, Sea Oddity, Big Red, how you doing? Tony Smith, Harry Hepworth, Flat World Logic, No More Shoes, Parish Mike, Martin Allen, how you doing? AB, Kazimierz, how you doing? Steve HV, oh, Purple Hippo, DJ Danny, Merrill, how you doing? Don't blame me for lack of sleep. She Helicopters, West Coast Wisdom, Bloody Stickle and Water, Pat Mustard, Good Times for All, how you doing? Blessed Family. So anyway, before I get into this, I'll talk a wee bit again in the future. There is a real kind of common purposey type gathering going on in regards to this topic. I think people need to have a wee look at the possibility of what's actually happening here. As anybody is witnessing, there's a real, attack on me, the man, coming from all angles, while at the same time patting each other on the back. I see there was a 6-hour bitch fest yesterday, and there's some known bitches now aligning themselves with these other people. People who are known porn bombers, people who are, up to all sorts of nonsense, and talking about activism and how my form of activism is wrong in comparison to acting like a Jehovah's Witness and with a megaphone and haranguing people in the street. There's a real sneaky, snide game being played here, and as I called it a long time ago, it's common purpose. There's a real push to control this whole thing. If you're a realist and anybody who's really awake to any of this, you'll realise that, the time had come. Technology was advancing too far. It was only a matter of time before this Globe cartoon was unravelled. So as we all know, the only way to, beat the revolution is to lead it, to have people placed within it, to make sure they're the go-to and that they are the celebrities, the idols of that type of movement. Now, when it comes to people like myself, I'm a rogue. I don't fall into anybody's rule book and a wee cliquey club or any of that stuff. So they've got a real issue with that, particularly when you've got, quite a large live audience at times. That's a real problem for them. As we have always seen, anybody who's not within the party line is targeted by propaganda and all sorts of defamatory nonsense. Again, it's irrelevant, it's by the by. Anybody at this point, if you see people bitching, continue, their content is only about focusing on people, slandering people, unfounded nonsense on people, you know that they're an agent provocateur. They're part of the propaganda brigade. So it should be very, very clear by now. And if it's not very, very clear, I have to say that you're probably a moron, which, I'm not going to lose any sleep over. That is the only thing these people would have, is weak-minded morons who would prop them up and support them, So, anyway, the focus of this is going to be the comparison between a concept, which is the globe heliocentric model, and the natural sciences. And what I'm going to show is an example of a human being observing natural phenomena in the real world, making a prediction, testing to see if the prediction comes true, and see what the result is. As I say, there was aspects I left out, so this is why I wanted to play it here, so that I can cover every possible ground. And again, we can have a comparison and a look at the argumentation, because this is the huge part of the globe. It's all about arguments, sleight of hand, manipulative, avenues of sway. It's not about impersonal, unemotional objectivity. Now, if it was a real thing, if the globe really was true, it would offer that in an abundance. There wouldn't be all these channels fighting the flat earth and making hit piece and propaganda videos. We would just have real people who represent real objective science offering up the practical measured demonstrations. But we don't ever see any of that. So again, I'm going to call it out. And again, in this video, you hear me calling out people like Fight the Flat Earth and Simon Dan, who will probably run away as usual. Although we will hear Simon Dan saying that he would be up for discussion or any type of interaction in regards to the topic. So we'll see if he does. And we'll see what returns in regards to natural phenomena, practical demonstration. I know it's only going to be rhetoric. But again, we're going to talk about the difference and identify what is part of a natural world and what is abstract theory. Okay? So, Gav, you're here.
I am indeed, my man.
Nice one.
Good evening, everybody, and yourself.
Aye.
I heard your opening. I'd just like to make a couple of remarks before we move on swiftly. But I got in my feed as well the 6 hour bitch fest, and to be honest, I'm disappointed to see all these people who in the chat supporting that kind of nonsense. Where obviously the people who are coming together, let's say, in this drive for unity, right, are basically trying to spin the whole thing as if we are the unreasonable people. And everybody else is reasonable. So now apparently Tim Osman and P. Mars are reasonable people that can be, that you can have discussions with. And it's absolute nonsense, Dale. If we think back in the 3 years, right, or however long it is, right, with all the nonsense we put up with week for week, or well, you have to put up with more than me. So, I just find that really disappointing that people even give that man any attention whatsoever, and all the other people involved in it,
It's also good, it gives people a clarity on who is aligned with who. Again, they're not offering any logical, reasonable stance to their behaviours and the propaganda that they're pushing. And again, when you see these people uniting, you have to be asking, well, what kind of people are they? What is their integrity? What is their, mental state? What is their real intent? Because if they're offering unity, but yet they enter into propaganda, hit pieces, bitching, absolute nonsense. Who are these people? What are they really up to? And now they're talking about European tours and offering activism lessons. I would like to know who the teacher is, right? Because I would love to see what that's about.
It sounds like a good way to either recruit people, gather information, or you could leverage a whole host of things on there if I was going to question their intent, which I think you have to do, judged on their past performance. So,
well, when I started the activism thing, I laid out a method of approach with people that was mannered, politeful, respectful. And you're hearing nonsense about how you wouldn't even chat a woman up like that. Well, how do you chat a woman up? You ask them politely, you be nice, you build up a rapport. I mean, blasting megaphones in people's faces and getting militant like a mad, psycho-religious person is hardly the way to approach people over a delicate topic like this, But as I say,
I mean, in Scotland, you might have some people going up saying, "Any chance you're a fuck, missus?" But that's just a bit of comedic fucking, politeness, I mean, everybody I've ever seen and all the activism you've ever done, Dale, has always been that way, polite, Yeah.
So if people are looking for a methodology of speaking to people, particularly strangers, I highly recommend that you look back over some of the backlog, because for me that's the way to approach people, with manners, politeness, respect, rather than, you know, telling them you're there to save them through a megaphone and screaming it at them in their face. You know, I don't take too kindly to that when I have to walk through the town, or when I see religious nuts proselytising over megaphones or whatever. That's not conducive to progress in a discussion as far as I'm concerned, you know. But hey ho. And again, you have to look at these people and what they actually offer. You know, all these people who are aligning, now, as I say, I've made that claim. I claim common purpose these people are part of. And if you look at how they built these bridges and networks, it doesn't make sense to just be normal, you know, everyday people. Normal everyday people don't work like that. You know, militancy, you know, service and police and these types of things, that's how they behave. They pinpoint their hubs and they have their hub type personalities, and that's where the operation goes around. The rest is just information gathering, keeping tabs on people and trying to coerce the whole thing to where they want it to be. And as I say, when people are starting to get militant like that, you're asking for problems, because then you're umbrellaed, and you know, any one of these people are now put up there to represent the whole. So,
well, that's what they're trying still with all this big unity push. Instead of it being individuals, you know, all maybe moving towards a how should I say, a goal or an objective is good for them, right? And it happens to be good for everybody else. There's nothing wrong with that. But the other way around.
Sorry, and particularly when there's no any addressing an individual's mind state and how we build from that foundation, and you know, build an individual up. Also, you know, how to disseminate the argumentation, to remove the red herrings, the sophistry, to get right to the nuts and bolts of the language that's being used, first principles, and establishing what we're actually discussing in regards to science. Now, I don't see that. I see continual, you know, claims being made about observed phenomena and loads of red herring discussions that again only muddy the waters. If you're trying to reach an individual, you want to tear apart all the unnecessary stuff that's there and get right to the meat and bones. So I don't see any of that happening with any of these people. So, you know, again, my concerns are still the same. What are they really up to?
Yeah, me too. I mean, we can see, Dale. I mean, you finish a hangout on a Saturday night, and 2 minutes later, you know, they're already online with hip pieces and things like that, which just shows you. I mean, not only would they not have a job if it wasn't for you, they'd probably be serial killers or harming other people. So, you know, in a way, we can be maybe glad that we're keeping them occupied.
Exactly.
At the same time, you can see how uncomfortable they are. I mean, some of the people that they're throwing over the trenches, it's like, you know, you go on there and, you know, you can see the nervosity of them, and, you know, so.
Exactly.
There's
you know,
strange things about.
Exactly. And this unity talk, well, you know, again, I asked the questions about what people mean by unity and could they actually define it. Now, for me, it's, you know, unity is individuals united on the objective. So we understand where the fluff is, we know how to remove it, we know exactly what we're talking about in regards to the topic, and therein lies the unity. I don't have to show up and kumbaya and give you big cuddles and act fake. You know, if you're an individual out there who's cutting through the bullshit and representing the objective stance, the real facts of the subject matter, then that is unity, because you're removing the muck from the whole topic. So, again, you know, they have to define what they mean by unity. And this, everybody has to get along and everybody has to be nice. So that's just not acceptable, because, you know, that attitude that allows manipulators and deceivers to run amok while everybody acts, you know, happy, kumbaya, blind to what's actually going on. And again, the oppressor always wants that. The manipulator always wants you looking the other direction. You're not allowed to ask questions, pushing questions or critical questions in case it, you know, brings to light some nonsense as part of that's a part of your organisation. So you need to be very wary of these types of things, people.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been, you know, asking for reasonable discussions now for years. All we're seeing online is debates and people, you know, in some kind of perpetual fight. And now we're apparently the ones that are unreasonable. It's a spin they're trying to play on it, and I hope people can discern through the nonsense, you know, and all the players that are coming together. Anyway.
Exactly. So anyway, you know, we're getting onto this natural sciences versus the globe concept. So, you know, the natural sciences, physics, biology, chemistry, the three-dimensional world of objects and substance versus mathematical conceptual theories.
That's exactly, seems to be the nub of the whole problem, that people are trapped in this idea that, you know, these things that mathematically describe things like astronomy and navigation and surveying, that all leads to Spaceballs and, you know, all the stuff that they're trying to sell us with their science fiction, Dell, and that people need to really get back to looking at the physical geometry, the physical sciences, the ones of construction, of engineering, of all these things that are part of our lived life, and to absolutely cut through that bullshit. If somebody's telling you stuff to do with modeling and mathematics, then you have to be extremely wary. I'm not saying mathematics is a bad thing, not at all, right? As long as it is, you know, modeled on reality and not on the metaphysical nonsense of some guy who's trying to be relevant and clever and smart and make money, you know.
Exactly. So I don't want to go too far if we're going to play this, because I've already doubled on some of the things I'll probably say in this video, but we can skip through. Just pipe in, Gav, when you want me to pause or whatever, if you've got something to add to what I'm showing, all right?
Absolutely. I haven't seen this, so on you go.
Cool.
Can I see it as well, or do I have to be on?
No, I'm going to screen share.
All right.
So you can see that?
I can indeed.
So let me know if you can hear it okay. Well, look, this is the first part in a series of natural science versus the globe concept. This first part is going to be in regards to the substance known as water and its behaviours. So I hope that this is going to help people and their stupidity.
My stupidity and I are rebel.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Let's get started, shall we?
Sense perception in the natural sciences. The natural sciences is an area of knowledge that can be defined as the knowledge of objects or processes observable in nature, distinguished from the abstract or theoretical sciences, such as mathematics or philosophy.
So what we're dealing with then is we're dealing with the natural world and the objects there within. Okay, so when anybody is making any claims, we refer to the natural sciences. You have to remember that we're talking about our objective reality that we all share. That is the very reason why things like mathematics is classed as a formal science, because it can wander into the realms of abstract. We are not interested in the abstract. We are trying to understand the objective world. Mathematics is a great tool to be using when it is attached to the natural processes, the tangible substances in the objective world. So that is where we use it, and that is what's important. Again, we'll be looking to distinguish between abstract and the natural world and the behaviours of the substances within it.
Dale, can you just stop that there?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's for me that always correlates very much into direct realism and idealism. To make that philosophical distinction again.
Yeah.
Direct reality is very much everything to do with the geometry of physical space, of physical substances, of all the things that we know and work with in daily life. And when we go to mathematical ideas or models or concepts, then that is idealism in its broadest form, right? And people definitely confuse those two things. We've made the example of, actually go out and touch an object and look at an object and touch it and smell it and taste it and knock it, and then remove yourself from that object 100 meters and just look at it. It's two completely different perceptions, right? One is a full perception, the other one is just a visible perception, and then if you shut your eyes and think about the object, then that's what an idea is, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you're going from a full perception to just a visible perception. And if you shut your eyes, all you have is an idea of it. But an idea doesn't weigh anything. It doesn't have an extension. It's not big in your mind. It has no weight. It has no volume. Do you know what I mean? It's in your head. And people really need to distinguish that models and mathematics and physical reality. I don't know how often we can repeat it. And I know I'm repeating myself, but...
Well, it's the nature of the beast. Move on to the first aspect of our objective reality. And then afterwards, we can have a look at some of the other aspects of the people who go against natural observation, experimentation, and prediction, followed by practical application. So enjoy. So here I am in the natural world, looking at natural phenomena. The world is three-dimensional. It consists of three-dimensional objects, substances, and the observation that I'm looking at, the natural phenomena that I continually see is this: that no matter where I am, I always find bodies of water displaying a level surface. The water seems to fill the gap between 2 points of same elevation, and if there is a decrease between those 2 points, the water fills that void, and the surface is always an equal horizontal plane. I don't know if you want to just have a wee talk about that. Image there, Gav?
Yeah, if I can, yeah. So what I just did in that small image was just split the different geometries of visible space and the geometry of physical space.
Yeah.
You know my opinion that looking at how vision works will help us understand the deception. I'm not claiming that visible proofs are proofs of anything, because as we both say all the time, these are partial perceptions. But because a lot of the globe proofsies or a lot of what they bring to the table is always based on visible phenomena, it's very important to distinguish between the two.
Yeah.
So basically at the top, I've written the things that are involved with the geometry of visible space, which is sciences. And it's actually not fair to call astronomy a science. I would class it as pseudoscience.
Yeah.
Because again, it's based on a partial perception, and we know space is fake. So things like astronomy is very much to do with what we look at in the sky, and visibles are also used very highly in navigation.
Yeah, and again, it's always assumptions that are made about these visibles. So you see that problem, when we start, being skeptical of the professed model, that being the globe. They will continually go to this visible phenomena and invoke that they are three-dimensional physical objects that they have, measured, which is impossible. You can't measure anything purely on vision alone.
That's exactly right. So that's where they basically make the jump from everything at the top is also equal to the geometry of physical space at the bottom. Yeah. And they'll sell us the idea that it really is a solid ball, hurtling through a vacuum. And that's wrong, because the geometry of visible space will not provide you with that information. It's a well-known fact. It's not up for debate, right? Yeah. It's well known in mathematics and in physics that all we have is this visible perception. When we don't measure distances, they have to lie to us that they're actually going there in rockets, right? Yep. To be able to bolster that assumption that they're giving us. Yeah. So and that includes all the things there. I mean, when we think about dialing, and by that I mean sundials, that's just a method of mathematical perspective. Yeah. And even our whole notion of time is built on apparent motion of the sun, right? How hours, the division of the earth into 24 time zones, all these things are just applications of looking at visible objects. Yeah. And then the same principles are applied in surveying and geodesy, because, all this celestial looking at stars was basically needed to be able to navigate on Earth. Exactly. And to find your position on Earth. Yeah. And there is a wonderful mathematics around it, right? Yeah. But it doesn't mean we're on a ball. Nope. that's the thing that people need to distinguish. Huh?
The other aspect to that is they go on about, you know, the angular size no changing with the sun. Well, what you have to think about with that, I mean, I've not even looked into it properly and what their silly claims are. But what I will say is this, you know, when they say these things, they're saying it from the assumption that what these things are in the sky are three-dimensional solid objects, you know. So we know with three-dimensional solid objects, they will decrease in their apparent size due to our perspective when we view over a distance. But,
of course they will.
but again, you know, that's when we understand and we know something to be a three-dimensional physical object. So
Yes.
what they have to realise is that they are coming from a place of assumption and already presupposing that these things are three-dimensional solid objects.
Yeah, but that's what gets ingrained into us at a very young age, right? We get to play with globes. We go to the cinemas and watch Star Wars and Star Trek, where that whole mindset is propagated to us. So we're supposed to all jump from visible space and believe that it is really physical space they're talking about.
Yep.
That's the lie that they're telling us, and the thing that they want us to believe, right?
And sorry, mate, when you go.
No, I was just actually going to jump down to, you know, what is the reality? If I go down to the bottom of that little chart, right, and when we're talking about what is physical space, then we're talking about substances. What you did today, Dale, go out and look at water, which takes up 70% of the earth. You're 70% made of water. Water is fucking everywhere, right? It can't be denied. It's used in all these fields to dilute, to make solvents, solutions, right? Yep. It's used in construction and manufacturing to move things around, right? To be able to operate machinery and lubricate and transport, and, you know, all these things are so obvious. And when you go into mechanics and engineering, if you think about all the constructions of canals and dams and, you know, so water's an intricate part of the whole of the, you know, what happens in our physical space, and all that stuff is real, right? Yep. You know what I mean? That's where we get the definitions of parallel and perpendicular and level and plumb, and we use planar concepts to do all these tasks, right? All these different fields of endeavor. Yep. And I mean, they're massively developed technologies, what we use there, right? So they work. They are part of our lived life, yeah? Yep. And they're objective. Everybody knows that they're true, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, that whole ball of wax down at the bottom is our reality, and everything at the top of the screen is more to do with concepts and images and ideas and, you know, making people have beliefs. Yep. And that equating visible space with physical space and not understanding the difference between the two of them is where everybody needs to wake up. And there's a whole, I don't know, there's so many fields of activities to explore in there to redefine what it is we think we know, Del, yep. Right?
Exactly.
I find it exciting, to be very honest. And
exactly. And not to ruin the next part of this that's going to be in the series, but, you know, the space ball thing, you know, balls of gas within a vacuum maintaining themselves, it's just absolute lunacy that anybody could ever believe any of that stuff based on what we know and apply in the real world, you know? So,
yep.
Anyway, I'll continue here.
Absolutely.
So again, here we observe the exact same phenomena, that this substance, water, fills the void between 2 points of equal elevation, and the surface is a horizontal plane. Well, appears to be a horizontal plane. We can get to the testing of the substance, which we will be doing very soon. So from this natural phenomena, this observation, using only my eyes, I can make certain predictions. The prediction being that a water doesn't appear to support shear stress, that it will conform to any container, the shape of the container that it finds or fills. The surface will be a horizontal parallel line from one point to the other. So as we can see with this body of water, people will mention forces acting upon it, like this guy.
Here's a video of some bendy water, you twat.
Oh yeah.
I just stop it there for a second there, will you please? I mean, I think it's important to address the fact that, you know, they're constantly misrepresenting the claim.
That's why I was leaving it playing, because I get to that.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll shut my mouth.
I'll pause it once I've stated that, and we'll discuss it further.
Go down. Right there, stop. Awesome. What's that? 30.
That was a clip of water being manipulated by sonic waves, proving what I say, that water will conform to forces acting upon it. Now, on our Earth, what force do you think is acting on the water? Anyone?
So I'm just about to say it there anyway, Gab, but we'll add in, just as you were saying. You know, what that guy's showing is a misrepresentation, you know, and they'll always say forces acting upon, you know, that will respond in regards to the force acting upon it. Well, that's all very well to suggest that, you know, but again, with his misrepresented demonstration, nobody is claiming that the Earth is a fountain of water subject to sonic waves, you know. It's a total nonsense in regards to what their actual claim is. What he should be able to do is demonstrate the forces that he's invoking and show us practically what is actually happening to the water in regards to this force interacting with it. Now, that must come down to tangible measurement, quantification of what you're talking about. No, just asserting it, taking out a camera and saying, look, see.
No, it's spot on. I mean, what you're demonstrating there is a large standing body of water and not something dripping off a table, which, you know, as you say, is a complete misrepresentation of the claim that's been given to us, Del. And your other point about quantification is spot on. I urge everybody to go to the Wikipedia page and realize that the quantification of anything is a mathematical tool about the ratio and measurement.
Yeah. And
that it has to map to our sense and experiential phenomena that we have. And it's not doing that at the moment, right? You know, I mean, I can go out every single day and see exactly what you've seen regarding water or regarding any substance out there, any natural thing, right?
Yep.
And it is not displaying the properties that they are claiming it to claim. Yep. And they're claiming to actually measure it, right? They're claiming they have ratios of quantity that they can give numbers to using mathematical models.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, but that is not the correct quantification of this reality, Del. Yep. You know, we are being told bullshit, and it's about time it stopped, and let's just keep hammering these guys with real science instead of pseudoscience.
Exactly, mate. Now, this guy has shown a misrepresentation of the claim. And I'm not aware of anybody who's making the claim that, you know, sonic waves or sound is somehow affecting the water. You know,
that probably is a new claim, Dale, because everything else hasn't worked their argument.
Aye, that'll be the next. The stars are giving out sonic booms, and that's what's making the water bend.
Unicorn farts.
Aye. Dishonest points, misrepresentations, sophistry in order to sway people. You know, we're not interested in any of that. We're looking for real representations of the actual claims that people are making. So, you know, what is it? We'll get this other guy as well to make silly claims like this.
If you study physics at any level, you'd know that the force of gravity relies on a couple of things: the mass of objects and the distance between them.
So, you know, probably what I'm going to add in here, they talk about this, that he's obviously going with the mass, attracting mass aspect. Now, I said this in jest and fun the other night. If they want to tell you that the more mass there is going to be more gravity, then why would water at the top of a hill run downwards, away from the larger mass? Does this gravity now have a sidewards pull to it? I thought it was a straight down pull. You know, it would have to be pulling it off from the larger mass down into an area where there's less mass. And also, what is it about this imaginary force, this concept that gives the water a new property? Does it change the molecular structure? Does it add a new property? Can they quantify this new property that's being added that now allows it to have an elasticity? I mean, what are they talking about?
That is the absurd one, Dale. You know, when you brought that point up, it's excellent because we know that the properties of water don't change. We've said that you can go anywhere in the world and have a bath in Finland, or a Turkish bath and a sauna in Finland, or on the Great Barrier Reef, or swim anywhere you want. Water does not change its properties anywhere, right? Yep. It's the same. So, yep. They can't possibly even claim that, right? But that is what they're claiming. It's exactly your description of what they're claiming is happening is correct. They're trying to say that something changes in the water, the molecular blah, 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 right? Yep. Again, based on mathematical little balls, right? That are, now very tiny ones, but it's the same mathematical models that underpin a lot of that nonsense about gravity. Yeah. Really? So, I think that's the most absurd argument that they bring, that water can bend, and they can't explain. They can't even give you a decent explanation without invoking equations.
Yeah, even their explanations. They have to show it practically. Again, I'm going to switch back here. There would have to be some new property. We can study a portion of any body of water. We can study water. We know the molecular behaviour and how it reacts to certain situations, and that's just not one of them. There is no, again, it's an unspecified point at which some new physics, a mystical force is appearing and injecting this elasticity into the structure of the water, allowing it to behave contrary to how we know it behaves. It's ridiculous.
Well, Dale, they'll be telling us next that we can walk on water.
Exactly.
So, they invoke the word gravity. For me, a religious mantra. Again, I'm going to ask these people, can you provide a practical demonstration? Can you tell me what it is about your force that injects into this substance that then gives it the ability to bend, to display convexity upon the surface? Because as far as I can see, that's a virtual impossibility, right? It's not a jelly-like substance. We are not filling the water with wallpaper paste in order to give it a viscosity that would allow it to display convexity. We're talking about natural phenomena.
You just stop for a second?
Yep.
So one of the things that I think we also ought to look at is how other animals react to the environment they're in, right?
Yep.
So you don't see a swan having any problem on a curved surface, right? You don't see animals, having to deal with these kind of absurdities, When you think of how, whatever a lion would chase a prey, right? And how they would use their visual perception, and the fact that they know they can run 40 miles an hour or whatever, right?
Exactly.
So it would be absolutely absurd even for animals to live in the world that they're describing to us, right?
I mean, animals know. When have you ever seen an animal go over a waterfall? They're smart enough to know that if the water's flowing, i.e. going over a decrease in elevation over a curve, they know they better get the fuck out of there, or they're in big trouble. So even an animal has the sense and understands when the water is flowing that it's heading towards a river.
Absolutely. I'd shudder to think that any of these animals would get one of our school educations. They'd come out incapable of lived life,
Exactly.
Natural observations, that being water. There's many, many other examples of people this for themselves and other people. There's just a few.
So, pointing out here, no matter the scale, that behaviour remains the same. It does not change. It's some fantastical, magical point in reality that's just beyond your perception or your physical touch or interaction. It just is not there.
Yes, yes, it is. It is. Just believe my wee visibles, Dale. Believe my wee visibles. They turn into physicals when you can't see them.
Okay, so again, you know, when we're talking about the natural sciences, you know, again, we can use physical phenomena. Like right now, I can view this and I can see that it's horizontal, or I would be fair and say it appears to be, but we'll get to the tests. Now, the beauty of the natural sciences is that we move in three-dimensional space about three-dimensional objects and substances. We can understand them, we can test them, we can apply that knowledge into technologies that we know and understand. So again, I hypothesize that when I get home, my claim will be found to be true. Water will take the shape of a container. The surface will always be a horizontal plane. And I'm going to measure that and I'm going to demonstrate it. Again, real science, showing the real world and how the substances actually behave. Now, getting back to the observational point.
Well, I just need to cut in on that one as well, just very briefly. So I remember one of your very first videos, how embarrassed you were for everybody else. You had to actually explain that, you know?
Yeah.
That water, you could make predictions about water. I think 2-year-olds know that, right?
Exactly. Well, I displayed it with Xander when he was 4.
Exactly.
He understood that the only device that would be suitable to move the water would be something with a hole in it.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to remind you. Yeah.
Right, that's it. Again, you know, that's looked at as if it was some sort of ridiculousness, but it's their claim. You know, again, and then when you use something that represents their claim, they want to ridicule it and start, you know, shifting the goalposts and invoking metaphysics and, you know, unspecified scales, unattainable scales that these things are supposed to happen at. When they start that, you know, we're dealing with pseudoscience.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I so wanted to be able to change color and blink when I wanted to, but shit, it's not going to fucking do it because it doesn't give a shit about what I want to do.
Exactly. Exactly. No matter how sophisticated you think you are.
About these supposed objects in the sky.
So again, I'm just highlighting the difference here from visible space to physical space.
I'm not sure if that's been picked up, the moon. And we also have the sun. Again, I'm not sure if I'm picking that up properly, I can't really see. These are visible phenomena. I cannot get to these things and physically measure them. I cannot move around them in three-dimensional space to quantify them and know exactly what they are. They're irrelevant to this question. We are asking the question of the Earth, the dimensions of the Earth beneath our feet. Anything up here in the sky is a red herring, part of the sophistry being used to sway people and to believe in absurdities as far as I'm concerned. So, back to real science. Natural phenomena. Water takes the shape of the container that it's in. The surface is always in equilibrium. From one point to the other will be equal at the same elevation. No, the surface is no bending. It is impossible for that substance to behave as such. And again, I'm going to demonstrate that in the very next episode. Well, the next part of this.
Yeah, can I just cut in there too? So one important thing there is, you know, what you said about us not being able to actually physically go anywhere near these objects in the sky that we see, these visible objects in the sky. And I'm very carefully differentiating between a visible object and a physical object as an object, you know, as something that I think about. But the very fact that you cannot go round that object and put your eye in a given situation, right, or touch it, right, or smell it, or any of the other sensibles that we have, is exactly the difference. And it's why they cannot give you a full information about anything, right? Right, as opposed to what is happening here on Earth. And your second point about the things below our feet being the most important, yes, I think, you know, everything should be concentrated as far as the physical geometry is concerned is what's below your horizon, if you know what I mean, right?
Yep.
And everything above your horizon is where, you know, they want to take you into hairy fairyland and where you have to be very careful.
Exactly. And the majority of their argumentation is in regards to above. You know, we're none of that, you know, I've said it so many times, it's a red herring. You're not going to get measurement of what is beneath you by looking upwards. And I challenge anybody, if anybody can come and I'll test them, you know, look at the light bulb, measure the floor for me. Look at anything above you to measure what's beneath you. Nobody can do that, it's impossible.
Yep.
Cut off there, just to add in, you know, we'll get people making these silly claims about forces acting upon. So when people are invoking forces, they are required by, you know, natural science to provide practicality, real demonstration of their claims. They can't just assert things at a mathematical level. Again, as we've pointed out, you know, mathematics is a formal science. It wanders into the realms of abstract, and people get confused between the difference between natural phenomena and abstract theory. So, if they're going to keep proposing these things, they must, and are duty bound, to provide practicality. Now, water will be subject, as we can see, wind acting upon the surface. That does not affect that the standing body is at an equal level from one point to the other point. Okay, so there is a wind acting upon it. Pressure doesn't play a role because water is incompressible. You cannot compress it. We use that knowledge in, you know, hydraulics. So again, they don't have a leg to stand on in that regard. We must be sticking to the natural sciences. That is practicality, actual tangible measurement, quantification of substance. And again, you know, I'm going to be highlighting that when I get back to the home. You know, I predict that my theory is correct, and that through that test, and when I get home and test it, we can then utilise that knowing, as we already do, you know, in regards to spirit levels, canals, water levels. You know, again, this is for everybody to check for themselves. So let's get to the testing. And again, I just want to throw in some further examples of this natural phenomena that occurs in the objective world. You know, we have a street here, and we have a gradient for drainage system. Now, when we have dips and undulations, water shows that it's not smooth, it's not a smooth path of the drainage. As we can see here, this water here is lying level. And again, we can follow it, and we can see where the topography rises here. Where the water, as you can see from that point to the point up here, is being contained because of a deviation from one point to the other. And again, it continues here. And again, we can see it in different parts. How do mate? We can see it in different portions. But again, we have these parts where we can see the liquid being contained because of a deviation in elevation from that point to that point and its surroundings. Now, if the level was to go up, it would spill over. You know? It would flow beyond that point. Again, the surface is always an equal horizontal plane. Again, here we can see natural phenomena. The surface is always an equal plane. Continuing all the way to the street here. The drainage system here is flawed because there is not a smooth transition. So what I've done here.
Sorry about that, I just had to skip it, it's a bit windy in that wee bit.
Okay, so now I'm back home, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to test my prediction based on the natural phenomena that we see and experience in everyday reality. So what I've done here, and if you can just look down here at this, what I've done here with this glass container is I have measured. Can you look down here and show that? Is it showing? Okay, So I've measured 9 centimetres from the base. This table has been levelled. I will demonstrate that once I get through it. Now at every point, it's been measured at 9 centimetres, apart from that side right now. We'll get that in a minute. We can see it all the way across. There it is, 9 centimetres. Same here on this side, 9 centimetres. Okay. Now, back at me. Based on my prediction, I have measured the depth here, what I'm looking for. Now I predict when I fill this with water, that the surface of the water will display that it is an equal plane from any given point in this containment. So let me just start to fill it so I can demonstrate that.
Are you still there, Gav? Everything all right with this stream, eh?
Right, I'm still here.
Right.
I just didn't want to cut the flow of it, your prediction and your...
Hey, bother.
But while you're filling up the vessel, I could make a comment on what you were saying earlier on about the, moving into mathematics and abstraction and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure people, when they were at school, you either liked algebra or you hated algebra, right? And algebra is where you bring in X's and Y's instead of talking about real things. So and the Y can stand for anything,
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly that, where they start to generalize things, right? So you instead of deducing things from known facts, you start to make a model, right? You go to induction, where you start to think up, things in general terms that would explain more than what you've just observed.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where you then, start to substitute general variables in there, hoping that with playing with equations, you'll get some, things that fall out that you can then use to predict stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, and it just shows you the difference between the two, deducing from facts. It's okay. I can refute any hypothesis on the basis of known facts, Dale, but a hypothesis can't come and contradict known facts, That is not true science, right?
Exactly. And that's exactly what I'll be stating later on in this video here. The natural world is the factual natural world is shown as, but what's contradicting it is an image on a TV screen. And we've said this so many times before. We don't throw out our understanding of the natural world, real tangible physics, and start replacing it with metaphysics, abstract mathematical equations to try and justify this image that depicts the earth contrary to how we know it to be behaving. And that's exactly.
And what you just demonstrated on the table was the definition of plumb and level, right?
Exactly.
So, which is, as we've said before, all of construction and engineering in this reality and in your lived life. So
exactly.
bear that in mind, people, right? When you watch this and think about it.
So I will take my time here, and I will fill this. You just a wee bit more.
You're not going to tell me it's the same elevation now, are you, Dale? I mean, come on. Am I supposed to believe that?
Right.
You're showing me a video.
Test it yourself. Peer review it. Everybody, peer review this. I want everybody else to test it and send me their videos.
And Dale, I'm not joking about that either. I mean, when I say things like, science, we need to make a common sense audit of all science, right? Yeah. And when they talk about all this peer review among experts, no, what we want is a peer review among normal, everyday people, and everybody must be able to do it for themselves. Everybody, right? Exactly. There can't be an exception if we're going to agree on what things are real and what things are some people's fantasies.
Exactly. So people can, do what I've done, show practically whether they come up with the same findings or whether they found something different. So whoever you are out there, let's have the peer review. Let us see your video, send it to us, let us know that you've done it, and we'll have a look at it.
I'll take my time. So to me, it looks like
that lovely clean water.
Yeah.
I still get people sometimes commenting things like, "You say water can't bend, but I just did a piss."
Yeah, exactly.
You've probably seen a million of them too, you know. But
yeah, but that's the thing. Misrepresentations. We're talking about standing bodies of water that are contained. You know,
yep.
no in flow. We know how it behaves in flow, but the oceans and lakes and stuff like that are no flowing anywhere.
Well, I just urge people to go down the west coast of Scotland and look at 60-mile stretches of standing bodies of water.
Exactly.
So you can see, clearly.
Exactly.
And as predicted, as we can see, although it may slightly be off level here, we can see through every aspect. Let me just see that camera. We can now see that we have matched the expectation.
Again, you'll note in a body this size, the meniscus adhesion cohesion is not taking place. That only takes place when it is something narrower than the diameter of, I think, 1.5 inches, maybe. Don't quote me exactly on those figures, but you will only get the meniscus effect when it's a very narrow tube due to cohesion and adhesion. So when we see it here in any kind of larger body, it just does not exist at all.
I think it also has to do with the form and figure, right? So not just the size, but I think that's about the right number. And
it's the width, yeah.
And I think, one of the things that, it's similar a little bit, this whole idea that meniscus is playing a role and that it somehow represents what the claim is. It's about as valid as saying that soap bubbles, blowing soap bubbles, right? Exactly. Is somehow representing how the world works, right? Yeah. So it's sophism.
Yeah, and we can see a nice wee example of what's happening viewing the chair through a different medium. We can see that, the bottle there on the left and the chair on the right.
Fully, we will see that my prediction was indeed correct, and that we have an equal surface, just as we expected and predicted. So just to be fair, as you can see here, I'm just going to show, because when I put this into the middle of this here, I'm just going to show you the thickness of the glass, which is just under about 4 millimeters. So we had a measurement of 9 centimeters. And we'll put it in the middle. Now, as you can see, we are just shy of the 9, but we have to account for the thickness of the glass at the bottom. And that is why. Okay, so predictability based on natural observation. It's true. That's how a liquid behaves. So again, I'm going to try it with something different. Again, we understand this knowledge and we apply it in everyday life. That's why we have measurement points on containers to show us how much is there. Okay, that's based on the volume. But again, if I fill this to any point, I'm going to get an equal surface all the way around. Okay, so that is the natural world. That is the substance in the natural world. I am not interested in sophistry, mathematical concepts and theories, because again, mathematics is a formal science that can wander into the realms of abstract. The substances in our three-dimensional reality require no abstract theories. Okay, they can be understood through practicality, demonstration, actual measurement. Then that knowledge can be applied. Okay, so that is why we have things like a spirit level. where we know that if we keep an air bubble in the body of water and it has no way to escape, that it will demonstrate to us that things are indeed level. So as we can see here, we have a slight slope up to the right. Okay. Now, to be fair, again with this demonstration, I am now going to elevate one side, and I am then going to remeasure the 9 centimetres from the elevated side and 9 centimetres around every other side. Again, demonstrating that the water will indeed find level and the surface will be a horizontal plane. Okay, so I'm going to re-record this wee part again. I'm just going to change it up a wee bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to elevate the one side of this again, and I'm going to remeasure again. I've already drawn the line because the video, for whatever reason, has a flaw in it. So I'm going to put these two parts, which I have measured. Let me just grab my ruler. Okay, so measure the thickness of these Lego pieces. Can you just film me there? Can you see that okay in the camera? Right. So as we can see, it's just over 1 centimetre because of the top parts of the block here. So it's about 1.2, and I'm just going to place them under each side. As we can see, I've already drawn the separate line. This bottom line here from the first part, and now I'm going to refill.
What's that? The fan on.
So again, we can now see the same was measured. If we go in here, if you can come in here this side, you can see the 9 centimetre mark here. We can see it again here. You can see the 9 centimetre mark, and the same on every other side of that containment. Again, proving that regardless of how we tilt any containment or whatever it may be, the liquid will always find that equilibrium point. The surface is always a horizontal plane, regardless of the topography of it underneath. And again, I can put something else inside, something that will sink. The level will increase slightly, but again, showing clearly that the water does not support shear stress. From any point, can you see me here? You cannot bend the water down, just put it in there. Bend the water, okay? The water is always a horizontal plane. Now I can scale that up. I can apply this understanding and this knowledge as I demonstrate together with the spirit level. We can now utilise that, knowing that understanding. So, there we have it. Prediction based on a natural phenomena observed in the real world, and results. We could mess about with different shapes of containers, but I feel that there's no necessity to go there. We understand how a liquid behaves. So. I don't know who it is that's calling me, but gonna do that on live information on that. I can't see who it is that's calling me. Natural phenomenon in the real world, and a demonstration of such that can be quantified, understood, and put to practical use. So what kind of response do people like me get from zealots? I can only call them zealots because that's exactly what they display. So we get responses like this.
Hey guys, I'm Fight the Flat Earth. Welcome back to the channel that has a great time laughing at stupidity.
Fuck's sake. Hang on.
I'm responding to a video made by a channel called Beyond the Imaginary Curve. And it's a water kills the globe type one. This guy believes he is correct with so much conviction. The level of delusion.
Fuck off, whoever's phoning me, come on! So we have people who think it's ridiculous. Gav, you still there?
I'm still there. Maybe somebody's just trying to wind you up or something, man. Usual shit.
involve themselves in the natural sciences. Well, I'm just going to stop sharing that anyway.
Right. I'm going to let them on if they can snipe and all that, right?
Aye.
Or are you on OBS anyway?
No, I don't need this open right now, do you? This part, so if I just shut that, we're still here, aren't we?
Right.
That's sorted. Sorted.
Well,
So,
very good. I just wanted, I thought it was a very good, simple, very clear, very concise tale. But what you're showing, and for some people, it might appear too basic, right? And yes, at the end of the day, a 2-year-old gets it. So, there's no excuse for, us to be circling around in debates about that nonsense, right? That's why, for me, it's just a slam dunk.
Well, again, it is. I mean, it's looking at the natural world, making a prediction, testing it, and see what you find. And again, I encourage everybody to do the same. I'm not lying. I'm not making it up. And all we're going to get back is idiotic nonsense about how, look at the small scale, at some unspecified scale, it behaves contrary to that. Well, that's not my problem. If you want to start invoking, metaphysics and abstractions, then that's your problem. Again, everybody can peer review this, check the substance yourself, let me know what you find. The only thing I'm going to listen to or pay any attention to is practical demonstration. No a man's words and his smug attitude and his, tendencies of delusion. That's just not going to interest me at all. And it should not interest anybody else either. It's as simple as that, just as Gav was saying. It doesn't need to be complicated. Okay? When we get too complicated, you're dealing with lies.
And there's one other thing I'd just like to point out in the experiment. So, it's not anything to do with what you were saying, but at various points in it, you could see the stick appearing to bend. I think it was quite noticeable in the baby's bottle.
Yeah.
You could see things bending, and yes, when you're doing that experiment, you will have observed those things happening, right? Yeah. Which is a visible phenomena again, which you need to understand why it's happening. That stuff is being refracted when it goes through different mediums, right? And that the light is then made to go at an angle to its original direction. And the same thing also happens in your eye. I mean, it's a little known fact that there is, for opticians, it's a well-known fact that you have eye aberration because your water is also made of your eye is more or less water. Then light refracts also in your eye. Yeah. And that also has to be accounted in visible phenomena, right? Yeah. And clearly understood and clearly applied and not just skipped over, right? Exactly. So I just wanted to point that out, that your experiment actually did two things. The visibles are always a good example to analyze, right? Exactly. But at the end of the day, what's absolutely factual and observable and objective reality is the way water behaves, right? Exactly. Not the way the stick behaves, right? That will have depended on substances, on the lighting, on where you were, on so many other variables, right? Yep. But the water doesn't give a shit.
Yep. So again, in comparison, what we're going to get is people in the language saying, but my magical force is acting upon it. Can you demonstrate it? Can you show the new property that a liquid is adopting to make it behave in such an absurd, silly, childish manner? No, you can't. You're just going to get these people sitting in their mummy's basement, pointing at whiteboards and tapping it incessantly and professing that it is the case. Well, the difference is me, just a common man, you, just the lay person out there, can repeat these things, which is much more powerful than any of these people in their words or the cartoon images that they provide on a TV screen.
Yep, I just want to hammer that point home, that the knowledge that you have from lived life, right, through your common sense faculties that everybody shares, is more powerful than any sophistry or words or images that anybody will ever show you, right? If there's no way they can come at you with contradictions to your known reality, then they are talking shite.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. I'm back at it again. Was that you this time?
Me? No. You mean somebody's trying to dial me? No, I don't think so. I was on mute. Somebody is trying to get me. Well, they're trying to get into this hangout, are they? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think you enter into this hangout. It's not
Somebody's
this,
trying to get me.
it's not this hangout they're calling, is it?
I don't think so. No, it's an extra. It's separate. Aye. So they're calling you separately, me separately. Yeah.
Somebody called Professor Jones.
I've got unknown.
So unknown. Easy stalkers.
Like more crazy stalkers.
Exactly. So
Well, we never left them any alternative unless they want to phone the phone and go in the naughty corner.
yeah, we'll give them that option actually. So wait a wee minute just to get a number here, because obviously I'm not opening up. So we'll see if we can get anybody who denies what's being shown, and if they have anything practical that they can show us that would rebut what's being showed to them. So, oh shit. Right, since I'm not opening up, I'll let people phone if they want in regards to what we've shown. Oh, there's the phone number there, so it's 07425 407 853. Yeah, there's this Professor Jones who was trying to call in. You can phone me right now, Professor Jones.
Maybe say the number again, Dale. Or is it maybe one of the mods will put it in the chat?
Yep, I think Jean had posted it there as well. So there it is. And I'll just read that out again for people. 07425 407 853. Let's hear what you've got to say in regards to the natural phenomena, the prediction, the test. If you get something better, if you get something that shows different, and I don't mean a misrepresentation. Yes, I heard somebody else said Timmy Boy was going to buy. He's been saying that for years. That's the last, that's the last. These people don't have a choice.
Nice, spot on. I'm still getting hassled by this guy, but I'm just going to take a quick break there. I'll be back in a minute.
Cool. Is it Professor Jones?
No, I'm getting somebody called Unknown.
Right.
It's not coming up with any name. It's a bit weird. I've never seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
That's you this time, isn't it?
It's me this time, aye.
Oh, they must be desperate to speak to us.
Mm-hmm. You can phone the phone number. You're not going to get us on the Hangouts. You have to phone the telephone. Again, the number is 07425 407 853. No, I'm not answering it beyond belief. So that was the first part. As I say, we'll be moving on to other aspects of physics and our natural world. I'm just going to shut that off. I don't need to have that open. So you can keep ringing it all you like, you mad stalker. You've been given the phone number. Call me. Well, again, as we were talking about earlier, when I went to the obsessive stalker who had a 6-hour hangout about me, there was people like P. Mars and these people who are known to play porn and disrupt hangouts who are being referred to as PAL. And we're also hearing guys like Russian Vids say, we tried to help you. You know, obviously slipping up and letting it be known that they're working as a unit. So these people are just digging a bigger hole for themselves as each day goes on. You know, and they're talking about people like me, it's over, my channel subs are going down, as if that matters, as if that's going to change anything. You know, none of that interests me whatsoever. The facts are not going to change because somebody has more subscribers than somebody else. I'm not interested in those fucking ego pissy games. They mean nothing to me. But if you want to obsess over me for 6 hours, who am I to judge you? You knock yourself out. But we see you bitches. We sweetie mouths. Hello? Hello?
Hello, Dale.
Yes.
How's it going, man?
Good.
I just want to know, why do you think the Earth is flat?
Have you been watching this evening's broadcast?
Oh, I have. I thoroughly enjoyed it, man.
Right, so what have you got to say about that? Let's focus on that. Do you deny it?
Well, the only thing I deny is, I'm just going by what Timmy Osmond's saying. How can you demonstrate tangible science? I don't understand what you mean by that.
Well, I just demonstrated a substance in the natural world, made a prediction, measured it, and found that my prediction was true. You know, that's how we do real science in the real world, you know. We don't act like Timmy Osmond. Timmy Osmond's an illogical piece of shit who makes assertions and assumptions and professes pseudoscience as somehow real. You know, I've just demonstrated the real world, natural phenomena, made a prediction, measured it, tested it, and my prediction came true. So what have you got to say about that? And what's Timmy Boy got to say about that? Fuck all.
Yeah, but you don't understand.
No, you don't understand, son. You don't understand.
Yeah, but how can...
Have you got a scientific test to show otherwise?
Yeah, but how can...
Have you got a scientific measurable test to show something contrary to what I've just shown?
Well, like, as I'm saying...
I don't want to hear your words, son. I'm not interested in your fucking psychobabble and your sophistry. Do you have you got an actual test that refutes what I have shown here?
Well, I wouldn't say I have.
Right, so shut up. You've got nothing. You're just a willfully ignorant moron then.
You don't understand what gravity is?
What does that mean? I don't like religious buzzwords.
Yeah, but it means that water can bend in a massive scale. You can't
Shut.
demonstrate it on a small scale.
Well, if you can't demonstrate it, it's pseudoscience, and you're retarded.
Well, I just can't, like, all these scientists all over the world, you're actually saying that these are all idiots?
Yes, they're retarded pseudoscientists. Can they demonstrate their claims and their assertions? No, they can't. You've just admitted that. So it's pseudoscience. That's the very definition.
But they've good theories, like, you know?
Mathematical concepts.
Well, yeah, it describes as how it could possibly work.
Well, I could describe how unicorns fart in the fifth dimension and produce fairy dust. So does that mean it's real?
I suppose no.
Ah, exactly. Stop listening to people like Timmy Osmond. He's making you an absolute moron. Right?
All right, Dale, you've a nice day.
Aye.
Have a good one, mate.
You look after yourself. You know, maybe up the medication a wee bit and stop watching idiots. Bye now.
Bye.
Again, predicted. But my magic stuff, should Timmy Osmond said so. Oh. It's very apparent, you know, as we're showing, the difference between actual measured science and pseudoscience. Can't demonstrate it, doesn't count. Anybody else like to try? Any other phone calls? The number again is 07425 407853. See you later, Robert. That was that wee saying. Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. Exactly. And that's exactly what we see with this globe concept. It can't back its assertions through practicality. You can only use linguistics, assumptions. Exactly, Phuket word. Only bends when you drop acid. I think that's maybe the problem. They're high on drugs. They're probably drug addicts. Have to feed their habit by peddling pseudoscience on the internet. Yeah. Cheers, Seodity. Again, anybody who wants to refute or, verify what has been shown here, please send in your measured experiment. 07425 407 853.
Hey, Dale, I'm back. Just one comment on the bending acids. Yeah, I think that's what the globe pushers have done. They've given us all a celestial fix.
Right.
It's actually a terminology that they use in astronomy and in navigation, so
Exactly.
a bunch of pushers.
Yeah. So what's happened here is you've got a graphics institution like NASA who produce these images, who depict the Earth in the way they depict it. And you have a whole swathe of generations of people, mathematicians, formulating abstract theories and equations to explain how that is possible, when the substance, just totally refutes all the sophisticated bullshit in an instant. So the question then lies is, what do you go with? Do you go with the real tangible substances in your everyday reality? Or do you suspend that in favour of an image on a screen and then involve yourself in some mental gymnastics, contort your brain in order to believe in total absurdities? Because that's
you're absolutely right. And I shudder to think how many times mathematics has reinvented itself over the years, with all the different, periods of time where geometries were different, where they discovered all, various things and like algebra and calculus and, all these tools of mathematics, these instruments, if you like, that you can model things, but that people don't realize that, the fact that's ever changing. But what's not changing is the way water behaves, or the fact that we use planar principles known for however long we've been in existence, right?
Yep.
That show us how to construct and build things and live life, right? So mathematics is constantly reinventing itself, even today, right?
Yep.
But the physical reality doesn't. It's the same sun when I open my eyes in the morning. It just doesn't go away, Dale. Right?
And people can say conspiracy theory. This is an actual conspiracy, because real science has shown you that what these people are professing and showing you on your TV screen is not reality. So they are snake oil salesmen. They are peddling a concept, an idea, which has a detrimental effect on people for various reasons. It's robbing you of a solid foundation, a starting point for you to start reasoning with your own existence and build a structure about your own existence. So there's huge implications to this, and it is a real conspiracy. It's not just a theory. This is not abstract what we're offering here. We're offering real world, tangible things that you can verify for yourself or falsify. If you can falsify it, by all means, let's see that,
No, absolutely. I mean, the pushing, it really is just globe pushing. That's all it is. Giving us false ideas, no foundation there. And, that's one of, we've said this many a time, but I do think it's the root of most of the evil and confusion and bewilderment, right?
Yep.
Of people. If you don't have that foundation of where you are, who you are, what this is about. That's an idiot trying to get me again here. Wonderful, trying to distract me.
You can phone in if they like,
Yeah, they can, but they're cowards.
Exactly. I'm sure the number's being shared there for them. Again, I'll just post it and I'll read it out again for anybody. Yeah. But again, I predict we're going to see the usual. We're just going to see rhetorical crap being offered and look at my photograph. That's not a quantification of anything. Doesn't count.
Been the same now for 3 years, just the same old stuff.
Exactly.
No new arguments. Oh, there he is again. this new players getting weaker by the day. I think that it's like, you know, when an army's in retreat, then they just throw out these people to stragglers to hold up the hordes of common sense that are advancing towards them. That's what it feels like. You know, they're just throwing them to throwing them to our feet. You know, just for while they scramble for something new.
Exactly.
I wish Google Hangouts would get a new ringtone.
Just phone the number. If you get something to say, 07425 407 853. Neil deGrasse, call me. Nothing. Not a thing. But the predictions. My magic force. My bigger scale. My planetoid in space. My pictures. Yeah. Sorry, not going to work, lads. You need to admit that the game's up. You know the game's up. I just think these are being used as some sort of, you know, idea that there is a resistance, so that people are less suspicious when certain things are unravelled. You know? As I said earlier, Gav, I don't know if you think the same. You know, for me, it was just a matter of time with the advancement of technology, the progression of people sharing information, that this globe thing was going to start to unravel. Particularly when we see the advancements of visual devices like virtual reality and, you know, these kinds of things. You know, people will start to see it. We've got the technology to see, you know, fakery within images, and people are getting smarter and wiser to these things. So for me, it would be in their best interest to try and control that, to bring it down and move people into a new type of paradigm. So don't know what your thoughts are, Gav.
I would agree with that, you know. So, in that I see also the inherent dangers of these devices, right? They can also be used for good purposes, right? I wouldn't want to deny that. And used properly, as you say, they can be used for devious means as well. They have to shift us in. It's definitely on the cards. It's not going back in the bottle. Pandora's box is open, right?
Yeah.
So they've got nowhere else to go apart from continue with the plan they had, I think, right? And adapt, But there's something of it.
Exactly, and that's why, again, you know, I focused on the empowerment of the individual. I heard that again. You know, we don't talk about the important aspects, like, you know, whether or not somebody's a transsexual, or whether or not somebody's gay, or whether or not somebody's a Jew or a Jesuit or a Mason, because apparently that's important. But what's really important, again, is an individual's discernment, how their mind actually works and functions, how argumentation is laid out, rhetoric, grammar, logic, how these things are being used and utilised to perpetuate bullshit and lies. That's the fundamental aspects of this whole game. Now, again, if anybody's professing to be a truther and they don't focus on that, I'm suspicious of them. When they try and perpetuate bewildering nonsense of keeping you still, disempowered, while some guru saviour points at a plethora of bad guys to give you something to launch your unhinged emotions at, you know, and feel pity on yourself because you're a poor victim, then that's somebody who's not to be trusted as far as I'm concerned. The bigger picture of this is how your mind works and how you process information. That's what you're, an information processor. So it's about time people looked at that hardware and how it actually functions. Sort that out, and then the lies and manipulation will soon fall by the wayside, regardless of what it is. You know?
Absolutely, Dylan. If I can just again recommend a good book for people to read, Inquiry into the Human Mind and the Principles of Common Sense. They'll find it online. It's a very good introduction to starting to, you know, understand how these things work, right? What it means to judge of things, what it means to have a qualified opinion in things, what's real, what's nonsense, you know. So people need to look into their own mind. I think that's you this time, is it?
No, I've got the Google shut off.
If I do that, I'll mute the Hangout probably, maybe. Maybe not. Oh, that was a good idea. Thanks for that. I should have just switched that off to you.
Yeah.
No, sorry, what were we talking about?
No, just talking about the. I hear this thing being bandied about continually that we don't focus on any other conspiracy aspect. Well, a conspiracy for me is irrelevant when people are just pointing the fingers at a race, promoting racism, generalising about particular races, or focus on somebody's character or their physical appearance or any of these things. These things are irrelevant. That's the work of propagandists. Bitches, sweetie moose, little fishwives who like nothing better than to sit and cast judgment and proselytise about other people and sow seeds and plant seeds in other people's minds in regards to their perception of other human beings. That's just a game that is totally absurd to me. There's no benefit in any of that. So when we're talking about other aspects, well, the fundamental is you are the information processor. So what is there more fundamental than understanding that very machinery that you're using right now that you call your brain? That's where the problems lie. That's why sophistry and manipulation can take hold, because people are in ignorance. They don't understand the methods that are being used on them. They don't understand how they're being affected. They don't understand how they're deciphering information from their own bias, subjective emotional point of view. You have to become aware of these things, realise them, adapt, and move on for them so that you can then progress in a further understanding. So it doesn't matter about 9/11 or the politicians or the Freemasons or any of these things. If your apparatus is not at an optimum level and functioning there, then what use is that for you to go and look at other aspects? All that's happening is they're feeding your victim mentality. People like to think like they're owed something, that they are a victim of this life and that somebody should pay the price. Now, they will seek bias in people like Russian vids who will feed that weakness and perpetuate it, while at the same time talking about unity and progress. You're never going to get progress until people start understanding their own emotional and psychological processes.
I fully agree with you, Dale. I mean, that's what this platform's been about. It's why I wanted to hook up, why I wanted to contribute, because all these other irrelevant topics, have got absolutely nothing to do with progress. Absolutely nothing. They're not going anywhere. No. And giving people the power to understand what they might bring out, what they're going to roll out, what the next, lie is going to be, what the next deception is going to be. You keep either people in power or people in this mindset that they're in with, inane TV shows and drivel and games. And it's just, it's got absolutely nothing to do with understanding where we are and who we are and, what the size is of our containment.
So when I see supposed truthers who don't focus on those aspects, I have to be suspicious of them. There can't be that much of a truther. They've got work to do still. If they're not deliberately doing it, they're at a level of still ignorance where they have to realise that it falls at each individual's feet. It's how the apparatus works, that being your mind, how that operates, and you need to figure that out first and foremost. Then you have to separate, subjective and objective. And that is your first two filters right there and then. So, again, these people that talk about their truthers, well, I highly doubt it, because you're not interested in empowering an individual. The biggest threat to any tyranny, any manipulator, is a empowered, well-educated populace. And I don't mean education as in regurgitating what people are telling you. I'm talking about a methodology of how to process information.
Right, and I can only iterate again that people need to trust their common sense, that which keeps you alive, that which provides you with, all the facts of this reality. Yep. You have to trust in that, and you don't throw it all out the window just because somebody tells you a wee story, because that's all it is. I told my daughters wee stories, wee fairy stories. We all did, right? Yep. So, and we still, as grown-ups, tell each other wee stories, Yep. And business and everywhere in life, you get wee lies and manipulations and deceit going on all the time, right? and people need to leave all that behind and look at the truth of the matter and the truth of what they're doing themselves and whether it's correct to do it. You know,
Exactly.
like to think about what is it they're peddling. You know, is
Exactly.
there really? If you're in marketing, kill yourself.
Exactly. Well, there's a perfect example. Tom Gauthier's saying that RV was claiming Eric Dubai's girlfriend was a tranny last night. Talk about slander. Well, again, this is it. It's this same type of, like the way they do it in the mainstream media when you get public representatives. Now, in people's minds, they've got a false perception of public representatives meet the criteria of this objective, perfect human being. There is no such thing. It's a falsity. And again, you have to ask the question, and it is slander. Why have you got people focusing on people's personal lives? You know, regardless of who Eric Dubay is, or who I am, or who Gav is, or what your sexual orientation is, that is by the by. That is nobody's business. And people who stick their nose into that are, again, sweetie mouths, little bitches who deserve nothing but a slap, because that's the only language they would understand. There's absolutely no use, there's no progress to be gained through any of that. Nobody is perfect. Nobody has the blueprint to what it is to be an objectively perfect human being. So when we see people playing propaganda games, focusing on these subjective aspects, you should be outing them. You should be removing your attention from them, sticking the finger up them and telling them you see them exactly for who they are.
Yep, because they're the bullies in the playground, you know. They're the ones, that's exactly the same mentality. Exactly. And you know, they're absolutely irrelevant anyway, you know. I mean, I don't give a shit about any of them, right? No. Until they come to the table as grown-ups,
exactly.
You know, and being honest and direct, you know. Otherwise, forget it.
But I have to say, you know, they display certain aspects that you can highlight and see the contradictions and hypocrisy that they offer. And it's useful for me to keep going over it and pointing at it now and again so that people can recognise it, you know. And as you say, Gav, people talk about me being straight to the point. You know, I'm not a bully. I don't run about, you know, slandering people's character or judging them at a subjective level or planting seeds in their minds about other people. I'm not a wee bitch. You know, I'm not interested in any of the manipulative bully games. So me being abrupt and telling you how it is straight, wearing it on my sleeve, that's not a bully. That's just, you know, me being straight. And if you're a snowflake, that's going to upset you. That's not a problem, you know. So understand what bullying actually is. It's people like that peddle crap, that slander and try and remove people's attentions by defaming their character.
Yeah, and it just shows the weakness of their arguments again. You know, that's the only thing that it really proves. So.
Exactly.
If that's all they have.
Exactly.
Well, it's been a great wee chat, and I don't think anybody else is going to be phoning in. So I'm thinking about knocking it on the head, my man.
Yes, me too, mate. A pleasure as always.
All right, good film though. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed the chat, and I'd like to say hello to everybody and bye-bye.
All right, nice one, mate. Cheers. Cheers. So I meant to add in other aspects. That's why I wanted to go through that. We could play with variations. We could change the temperature of the water. You know, it's not going to change the structure of the water and its physical characteristics and behaviours. We could put it in different conditions. We could elevate it. It's still going to be the same. So again, I encourage everybody to peer review what's being offered. And I mean peer review by practical demonstration. You can verify what's being shown, or you could falsify. Only practical demonstration will do. Observable phenomena, taking photographs and making assumptions and assertions, that's just not going to pass. Because as far as it stands right now, the substance is telling us where we are, the possibilities of where we are, and what's impossible about claims that are being made about where we are. So I go with that. I don't go with fluffy, you know, cherry-picked bias like globe cult zealots. So next time, I'm going to be focusing on pressure, gas, its behaviour, what is required, what its relationship is in terms of vacuums, what a higher pressures relationship is in relation to a low pressure system. And we will see the actual physical behaviours of these things, and we will be demonstrating them again, putting to bed the absurd, silly notions and claims that we exist as a pressurized gassy environment adjacent to a medium that is a vacuum without any solid separation. Absolutely absurd. And I will show that through practical demonstration again. So thanks to Gav, everybody here, moderators, much appreciated as always. I will see you very soon. Take care, people.